Hi, I'm Darian Bacon. I teach courses in 911 and crisis intervention, emergency telecommunications. It really doesn't matter which of my courses you've heard me lecture in. I've probably emphasized that the most important thing you need to solve on 911 calls is where the emergency is, to geovalidate it, to find a verified address. Because trust me, in a 911 situation, not every person is going to call you with a common coherent address that jives in your CAD right off the bat. So there are some problem solving steps. This is a supplemental demonstration just showing you some common addressing hiccups and how to overcome them. This is currently 2025. My Google Chrome browser is up to date. I am using Google Chrome. Your mileage will vary depending on which browser you use. I have set up a bookmark folder specifically for CAD just because of how many of these things I've been doing these days. But I'm going to open up a few tabs. Right from your browser, you can open up tabs specific to my CAD setup. I'm going to open up a CAD, and again, every semester these things look better and better. Maybe load a little faster and faster. Oh, sure, make me do that. And every course will have a different CAD because I'm trying to accomplish different things. So this is just sort of a scratch pad for me to work off of. I'm also going to open up our friend Google Maps. I'm going to open up one more tab. And I'm going to open up what three words. So now I am ready with a CAD screen open. I could answer a ring. I can take a 911 call. Let's see what we get. So generally, when we think of addresses, we think of what we call civic addresses. So if I go on Google, Loyalist College, it's got an address here. If I type in, I don't know, Glanmore for Glanmore House, because that's all the 911 caller said, I can find the address, 257 Bridge Street East. That's what we usually consider as addresses. Bear in mind that with Google Maps, I also have this satellite view which I can switch to just a normal mapping view if I want as well. I can also go on to Street View and see what, under construction, Glenmore physically looks like if I'm getting a visual description. So any landmark, any island, any park, anything that might be, an also known as, you can usually type it into Google Maps and get a decent answer. And that's where a lot of times it's going to be your local knowledge that drives adding these calls, knowing kind of where the focal points are in your area and being able to connect the dots from some sort of common starting point. So let's grab a 911 call and see what we can do with it.
Well, let me tell you, it is terrible, absolutely terrible. There has been a huge accident behind us, like a total war zone, the likes of which nobody has ever seen on the big freeway of Ontario. Believe me, we were driving in the beast, my beautiful limo, the best limo, coming from Toronto on the way to your funny named capital, tremendous architecture, though, very classy. I'd say it's maybe a mile back, big wreck, cars everywhere. I'm out here in the country, middle of nowhere. I have absolutely no knowledge on where we are. You'd have to ask someone else about that. I may be, I don't know, 2 hours from the airport, and all I can see right now is this big, beautiful apple smiling at me. It is a huge apple. Very impressive, very happy apple. So that's where I am. Send your best people, the very best. They're going to need them.
Okay, so we've got enough to work with there. We know they're heading from Toronto to Ottawa, which means they're heading eastbound. Um, Really, the only freeway that connects that, because Highway 7, calling that a freeway, probably not, would be the 401. So that part checks out. Eastbound 401, about a mile back from a big smiling apple. This is where it comes down to knowing your geography. And yeah, it's not going to be as quick for absolutely everybody, but when you've done the job long enough, you know where there's a big apple on the 401 that's smiling at you, and it's not too far outside of Belleville. And I can use my Google Maps and I can use Street View. Actually, before I even go too much further, I will note the mile marker 497. This is a new feature in Google Maps. It's showing you what each of these ramps, what their mile markers are. There should be, yeah, here's 497 coming on the westbound lanes to get onto Big Apple Drive. Here's 497 at the ramp to get onto the eastbound. So that is new for Google Maps as of, I don't know, last time I looked at Google Maps. Um, Bear in mind, we don't just have satellites or traffic layers to see things. We do now have crowdsourced data for traffic patterns on Google Maps and what three words I believe as well. But Google Maps would definitely be where that's coming from. I also have Street View, so I can figure out, oh, eh, eh, big, beautiful, smiling apple looking at me. Okay, so we know that is roughly there, and that is where the ramp has just started. So why don't we pull out of Google Street View, see where that just started. Now I'm going to zoom out a little bit because I know what I'm going to do. Right click, measure distance, and we know that a mile is roughly 2 kilometers. And I can't read that. I'm only half a kilometer. I'm going to zoom out, a heck of a lot further, I guess. And we'll try here. 3.9, no, that's too far. So we're basically looking roughly. Oh, hey, that's new too. It actually shows you your kilometers. So 2.2 kilometers, I would probably pin my accident there. So I'm going to right click, go clear measurement, so I get rid of all of that. And there is a Latin long for my specific accident that is a mile back from a smiling big apple. I did that using mostly local knowledge with a little Google searching as well. Now, that was just using my knowledge of local geography, of knowing that after this long stretch called Grafton Strait between Coburg and Colburn, where there's nothing but trees and there's no ramps, people often get discombobulated as to where they are, and then they pop out, and yeah, there's this big, giant red apple smiling at them. It is a landmark that is so often used that I could actually go into Google and type the Big Apple and get this exact location, including the Big Apple Petting Zoo. There's an entire set of attractions around it. That's not always going to be the case, so local knowledge is going to be your best friend. But sometimes you're going to have to go a little deeper. So, what if we had to find somebody in the Big Apple? I don't mean actually in the core of the issue here. I mean in this very large facility. There may or may not be a floor plan for the Big Apple, but there are definitely lots of different access points. Are they back in the kitchen? Are they in the Christmas market? Are they overtending to animals? There's a lot of different places within that address we might need to send them. So let's look at a call where greater granularity in terms of where the patient is required beyond what we can get from GIS systems.
Hi, it's Brooke from Campus Security. We've got a student in our dispatch lab. They're having difficulty breathing. Yeah, the address, it's Loyalist College. It is the Lennox and Addington Wing, first floor, room 38. But I gotta go. They need their inhaler.
Okay, dispatcher down, Loyalist College. Well, let's start like we did before and Google Maps to Loyalist College. Fantastic map, lots of detail. Lennox and Addington Wing, that's going to be tough. Figuring out doors from above, because Street View is not going to go all the way around the building. That's going to be tough. We're going to need something else. However, this is still a good starting point because it's got the website and I can just click. Now, spoiler alert, every website is different and there is no standard we're going to put all of our maps in one spot, so sometimes this takes a little bit of browsing to find. But in any facility, whether it's Canada's Wonderland or the GE plant or a provincial park or a college, we're going to find, in this case, campus maps. So I am looking for campus maps. I have to click it multiple times. Websites, yay! And I can find a floor plan for what I need. Now, again, every floor plan is different, and the way people arrange or organize room numbers to represent that, that can always be different. Here at Loyalist, and I'm going to zoom in, for me and Google Chrome, zooming in is holding the control key, and I'm scrolling up with my middle mouse wheel because I have one. If I don't have one, holding down control and hitting minus zooms out, and hitting plus zooms in. You'll notice here that I'm in an area, hold control, that has a whole lot of threes at the beginning, and then on the second floor, all these rooms have two at the beginning. On the first floor, all these rooms have one. So we know they said the first floor, we're in the right spot. I keep scrolling over. Here's our Lennox and Addington wing. And way off in the boonies, we have our dispatch lab at 1L38, or first floor Lennox and Addington room 38. So that is how I would find it. Here's the door that I would send crews to, which isn't labeled on any maps, so that would be difficult. That door may not be open at night. You're going to want to check with the security for that facility. In this case, I believe they're commissionaires. Oh no, it's night security that does it there. So you're going to have to call the desk, make sure you can get the doors open, or you might have to go in the front door and have security lead you slowly to your call. However, if you are without security and you need to find it, you need to take that map that you found and convert this information spatially into what makes sense with what you're seeing. So I know how to orient Loyalist College based on the floor plan, and I would say that door is going to be where this sideway gets out, which is right there. So if I'm taking them right to that door, that is where I'm directing my crew to, complete with lat long address, though that doesn't help too much, but also a Google Plus code. There you go. So generally speaking, if a 911 caller is not in their own home, they probably don't know the number of the address, the street number. They'll probably know the street name, and if you're lucky, they'll know the closest intersection, whether that's the cross street or a major intersection. We'll figure that out. But generally, they will know something like I'm at, let's back that out, Park in Maitland. And so I've got that in Google Maps and I hit enter. And the first thing I do is double check that it hasn't taken me to a different town. I've confirmed, okay, so we're talking in Belleville. And for some reason, Google wanted to change it around to Maitland and Parks. Whatever, it's still the same intersection. And I've got a red pin right here. This is a great example of when north, south, east, and west is not going to work. Because if they say he went down the street heading south. Which way is that? So be careful because when they're on the ground, that's very tough to figure out. They don't always have this nice little rosette to say, oh, south is that way, right? So they're mixing one of these up as south, and you're going to have to figure out which one. Anyway, not to our current problem. It was just simply Maitland and Parks. Notice I used the ampersand here. That doesn't matter. If you want to do the extra 2 clicks, Google will switch you back there anyway. So intersections, you're going to get them quite often, especially for mobile callers. Better know how to get them in your CAD.
Yeah. Hey there, 911 guy. So I'm in this store, right? Downtown in Belleville. It's at the corner of Front Street and Bridge Street. It's a real nice place. It's kind of oval, lots of plants and jars behind glass. Everyone's kind of super chill, if you catch my drift. Anyway, this dude just took a nosedive right through one of the displays. There's glass everywhere. It's like a freaking Snoop Dogg snow globe in here. The guy's on the floor. I think he's hurt. Maybe he's just really, really relaxed. I can't tell. But yeah, it's in the shop with the big green leaf logo and not the salad kind.
Okay, that one's pretty straightforward. Let's make it harder. Let's not even add no capitals, no street, no avenue. Let's just do front and bridge and hit enter. And I even spelt, look at this, I even spelt front wrong. My right got in front of my left. And it still was like, well, I got to figure something out. So it gives me a whole lot of options. And I see right off the bat that I have a pretty good option here. Um, and it added front street and bridge street east into the call. It also realizes that there's an intersection of front and bridge at the Campbellford Skyway. The bridge in Trenton, the old train bridge, does end up going up against Front Street. So now it's taking a physical bridge in a street. It's like, well, maybe that's what he means. But no, obviously we want front and bridge. I It's interesting it says Bridge Street East because right here it turns into Bridge Street West. The signs, if you look at Google Street View, I think turning, keep on turning, zooming. Yeah. So the map doesn't jive with what our caller might have thought. He might have thought he was on Bridge Street West. Technically, those addresses don't start till you cross the water near west side of the bridge, right? It makes sense. Not how it's marked in Belleville. Another thing that you might notice is our map has given us a pretty, yeah, I'd say that's probably where we're heading. But if we look at Street View, the photo's out of date. It's when it used to be the old yogurt place. And if you were just using Google Street View, you would miss it. So use multiple pieces of information. You have to start troubleshooting Bridge Street East, Bridge Street West. Well, the sign says Bridge Street West. True story, right? Originally, we only had Bridge Street. Now we've got a different problem. But in this case, it was easy to solve. There will be times when the Googler is not helpful at all in finding an address. There are times when roads don't exist on Google that are absolutely in existence in real life. The example that pops into my head is my absolute favorite place if I'm going to go like car camping in Ontario. It's in Algonquin Park and it's called Acre Campground. Okay, beautiful area in the absolute middle of nowhere. Well, I wasn't expecting Street View. I was going for satellite view. Here we go. So many sites spread out throughout the entire campground and around the beach. But even from the satellite view, you can't even pick out most of the roads and lanes, let alone what road do you need to get down to get to what site. It would be absolutely impossible with Google. So this is where we need to use our heads and figure something else out. Let's look at an example.
I I need your help. Mommy fell and hit her head on a log, and now she's really acting funny. But we're camping. I don't know really where we are. I know the park is called Sandbank. And on a paper thingy the lady handed us, it says site number is Cedars 220. Can you find us from that?
Okay, let's walk this one through just like the other ones. We're going to go into the Googler and we're going to throw in Sandbanks Provincial Park and see what happens. We see a lot of Sandbanks things and we see the Sandbanks Provincial Park. Okay, what more can we get? We go down the Provincial Park Road. We've got a park office. That's great. Cedars Campground. Okay, so let's zoom in because I see roads. Can I get the street names? No. No site numbers. Nothing. Well, that's not helpful. Oh, wait. As I zoom out, suddenly the roads appear. Suddenly I have something that I can mark, but I can't see site numbers. But if I zoom in, it goes away. The amount of times I've tried zooming in for information that I have to zoom out to see in Google, man, I'd be a millionaire if I got a nickel for every time. I'll put it that way. So we can't get more details other than in here-ish from Google. But what can we do? We can go to our friends, the websites. Now, warning about Ontario Parks websites, because trust me, with the amount of parks we have in Ontario, you're going to get a lot of calls to provincial parks. The problem is that they don't all have site maps. Many do. Sandbanks does. Quite often, if you click on maps, this is all you're going to get. Here, however, on the right, we have park maps, a trails map and a park overview map. Aha! It's what we need. And if we look, we can see kind of the different lots, but Cedars and Outlet River, okay, that's what we need. So let's zoom in on Cedars and Outlet River. Now we can see very similar to the same information we see here. We can kind of follow the bouncing ball as to what we're looking at. And we can see that if we're looking for 220, just figuring out where we all here, 670, there, 220, right there. So on the east side of the river, just about where that first loop ends. Can I see that on here? River east side where the loop ends. Okay, there. Cedars 220. There's my Google Plus code, everything I need to get a crew to that call. Solved. And of course, like so many other things, not all provincial parks go the same way in Google either. I could go to Frontenac Park and I could find the map on the Ontario Parks website. That wouldn't be a problem. But if I zoom out on Google, I actually can start getting, where's some other ones here? There's campsite 3. Okay. The campsites, because they're so few and far between, up for Frontenac Park, are actually found in Google, and people have, pinned them and showed fancy pictures and all that jazz. Maybe not for 15. Does 3 have a picture? Not 3 either. But here they are right in Google. You don't even have to go through the Ontario Park step. So again, we are layering tools on top of tools, same types of calls, many different ways of abstracting the information that you need.
Yo, what's up, 911? It's a D-O double G calling out. Things just got real up here at the Bancroft Tent and Trailer Camp. In the park we're at 96 Doggy Walk Trail. Yeah, for real, that's the spot, my brother, but somebody done took too much of something. I don't know nothing about it. They're down, my brother. They're barely moving, looking like they need help real fast, you dig? I tried calling their name, but they ain't waking up. You know, we out here in the sticks, there's trees everywhere, there's campfires, there's birds, but right now this scene ain't chill, it's furious, brother. So roll them lights and sirens down Doggy Walk Trail quick before so shizzle this trip turn tragic, my guy.
Okay, let's try the same tools from before. Bancroft Tent and Trailer Camp. I'm going to hit enter. Well, let's zoom in. And let's remember to zoom out to the whole hokey pokey. No, I'm not getting any data for road names or sites. Next step, hello website. And website, right here at the top, map. All right. Site map, handwritten site map. Gotta love those. Notice here, and yeah, of course, this is Doggy Walk Trail. Notice how this is a dotted line compared to a solid line. So it's probably a much lighter detail on that map. And when I'm looking over here, yeah, okay, see, we can see where we go around, but this is the main road. Look back at the map. We've got this big main road, and we got a hoop here, and Doggy Walk Trail kind of comes off that. So let's see what we can see. Here's that hoop, right? So we know we're roughly in the neighborhood of about there. We're obviously going to put more information in the call. However, there's the Latin long for number 96, Doggy Walk Trail in the Bancroft Tent and Trailer Camp. Quite often, a 911 caller is going to give you an intersection as sort of a starting point and give you a treasure map beyond that. They may say, I saw the car speed through the intersection and about 5 kilometers down the road at the Big Bend heading north, they crashed. They might say the crash happened at the intersection and the occupants fled down into a ravine and crossed over a pedestrian bridge and went jump the river into the old cement factory, and you're going to have to track it that way. Let's take a look at one of those calls and see how to handle them.
Oi, listen, there's a lad down by the swamp near Hastings Street North in the York River Drive. The right when the river's end. Looks like he's finger plastered than a donkey in quicksand. I yelled at him, I says, get out of the swamp. But he just couldn't do it. I don't know if he can't swim or he's just daft, but he's going under near the muck by the riverbank. But out here in Bancroft, the real countryside, nothing but trees, bogs and trouble. So you'd best send somebody right quick before that fella becomes part of the bog.
Okay, another intersection call. Hastings North, York River Drive. See what happens. Great! We've got an address, and we got a bend in a river, and that's what I'm doing. I found the address, and then I looked for the river, and I kind of go to the closest point in the river, and then I see a big bend. That's where I'm looking, right? We've got the lat long, and we're all set. We've got a call. The only problem is Google chose this intersection. And as I said, quite often, if you've got a north and a south and an east and a west, usually, and unless you've got weird city planning, they don't bend and connect. Well, here's the thing about Bancroft. It's got weird city planning. It follows the river mostly, um, but the problem with York River Drive and Hastings Street North is you keep going and you got a York River Drive and a Hastings Street North. And you've got a bend in a river that looks an awful lot closer to the intersection, something that somebody would automatically think, oh, they're in the muck down by the river compared to here where it's a bit of a trek. So you've got to be careful of roads that maybe intersections aren't as clear cut as you might think. Sometimes roads do connect in multiple ways, and it's not just Bancroft. Lots of weird infrastructure causes this to happen, so you have to be mindful of that. So, as a 911 call taker, you are always very lucky if your caller is on a major road like a 400 series or Highway 11, 115 is another one that comes to mind. One of these ones that have mile markers. Every kilometer in Canada, not mile, but we still call them mile markers, every kilometer at a minimum, uh, it is marked with a little green square with a number from ranging in kilometers from the start of the road. So for the 401 Windsor to the end of the road, 401, that would be Gatineau. Um, these in built up areas like in the GTA, it's actually down to every 100 meters. You would see like mile marker 390.7 it would be down to the 100 meters that they're marked, but usually it's just every kilometer. And it is so important as well when we're talking about 400 series roads and major expressways that we get the direction of travel. Not only are they complicated, not only do they have multiple lanes, my goodness, multiple lanes, but it is against the Highway Traffic Act. It is against the law in Ontario for an emergency crew to jump from one side to the other with their bodies, with a vehicle, unless it's a designated turnaround. We have to end up going all the way to the next exit to turn around, get back in, and go if we're in the wrong side. So direction of travel is extremely important. Let's hear how one of those 911 calls go.
Hi. So I'm on Highway 401 and we're in the eastbound lane heading towards Kingston for my concert and traffic is just stopped. There's been a rollover right here. It's on mile marker 570, and I gotta tell you, it's bad, y'all. Like, there's debris everywhere. People are out of their cars. Nobody's moving. Anyway, it's blocking all the eastbound lanes, and we're kind of in a pickle. Like, oh, it's a standstill situation. I've seen breakups with less chaos than this, so send somebody fast before I turn this into a country song.
Now, I would love to tell you that all you would need to do is type 507 Highway 401, maybe eastbound for eastbound lanes, and you're going to find, well, you got something in 507 Highway 401 Etobicoke. I'm curious. Yeah, no, that's not close to the mile marker range. So clearly, adding mile markers this way in Google Maps and what three words, this does not work. However, there are tools. Interestingly enough, when it comes to the 401, the best tool that I've found, I have been using for, I think, almost 20 years now, and it hasn't changed. It's just a website, and it's bookmarked in any courses where this might come up. But it's the mileage table for the Highway 401, starting at Windsor, ending in Gatineau. So I can go all the way down here and see every single exit until I get to a little too far, 570. Okay, it's Deseronto Road. That I might be able to do something with. So we can go back to our Google Maps and I'm going to put in Deseronto Road. See what pops up. Well, you know what? No Highway 401 does. Well, I didn't give an intersection because technically it's the ramps, right? It doesn't actually intersect, and that's what the problem is. But if I scrolled out far enough, I can get into here and I can see. So we're right at the exit on 570, and here we go. Here's the mile marker popping up for us right at the exit. Click. Simple as that.
Oh, yes, good afternoon. I'm presently on the north shore of Mud Lake in a rather remote quarter of Ontario, documenting the delicate ecosystems in this splendid park. My cameraman, however, has found himself in quite a predicament. He appears to have engaged in a territorial dispute with a native hornet's nest. Truly a remarkable sight to witness. A man pitted against several thousand miniature daggers suspended in the air, each one nature's own little warrior. He's retreating quite hastily, I might add, and I fear he's been stung rather liberally. You'll find us precisely at the what three words address, Wised, Graver, Redevelop. Do send assistance before nature claims yet another curious filmmaker.
So this will likely be the simplest and fastest of all the demos in this entire video because you quite simply just need to do exactly what they said. And if it's Wised Graver Redevelop, then it's Wised Graver Redevelop. I'm on a shoreline. Looks like I'm on a north shore line of Mud Lake. out in the middle of nowhere. And if it was just a civic address, like a 911 address, I've got a huge perimeter that I'd have to search for versus knowing exactly where someone is. It is as simple as that. Now, you saw I used the full syntax. I don't have to do three slashes wise dot graver dot redeveloped. If I just do wise graver redevelop, did I mean wise graver redevelop? Well, yes. Yes, I did. And it just fixes it for me. So you don't have to even get tripped up with the syntax. However, you save steps if you can remember three slashes and a dot in between with no spaces. That's the trick. So what could possibly be simpler than three words? Well, if you ask Google, their best shot on it would be a very strange hexadecimal string. I get that it works great for computers or for folks who think like robots, uh, but this is quite often difficult to extract from a caller. That being said, if it's a telematics agency, if it's someone who's getting their information from a robot, it may be all you have, and it is increasing in popularity as the years go on. So let's hear a call where that might play out.
Yeah, hi. Bit of a unexpected situation here. We were running a joint test flight with the Canadian military, like experimental autonomous aerial drones, cutting edge stuff. And well, it turns out gravity still works in Ontario. The prototype decided to reevaluate its landing algorithm at a rather inconvenient altitude. We've got some minor injuries, though. They may just be looking for settlement and taking it. I wouldn't know. But there's smoke, there's some startled soldiers, and some very expensive craters. The location is a small military airbase. Coordinates, Google plus codes. Let's use 3 Juliet 8 Quebec plus Foxtrot Victor X-ray. You can't miss it. It's the one with the slightly smoldering rocket-shaped thingy where the runway used to be. But send some folks that are up to my standards of competency, okay?
Thinking like a robot indeed. Okay, so we're already in Google Maps. We got a Google Plus code and it was a complete one, not a partial one and then a town name or anything like that. We got a really good one. We've got it pasted in. We hit enter and I get a field. Well, that doesn't. Oh, right. So here's your Canadian Forces base that is outside of Trenton by not too far. Trenton's just going to be uh, Quinte West right here. So here's CFB Trenton. Here's this other airbase south of Belleville. Okay, yeah, we're in the right spot at almost looks like a crater right there. Hmm. But that's how you use Google Plus codes. So if what three words in Google Plus codes are the future of geovalidation? Latitude and longitude are not just our present, but they're also kind of our past. They're sort of on their way out, but they are the standard, especially when it comes to telematics and avionics. The problem is there's multiple ways of describing your latitude and longitude in ways that look compatible and they're not. So let me use that last call as an example, where I click the location and I get something in decimal degrees. I'm 44 degrees. It's positive because here in Ontario we're north of the equator. 44, and it's basically 0.7% of the way to 45 degrees. And it's negative 77 because we're on the west side of the prime meridian, and it's roughly 36% of the way to negative 78 degrees. The other way, the way we're going to talk about here, and all you have to do is click on it to get it, is your degrees, minutes, seconds. And that's what these mean. You've got your degrees, your apostrophe is your minutes, and your quotation mark is the seconds. So we can do that where it's 44 degrees, 4 minutes, and 1.2 seconds north latitude over 77 degrees, 21 minutes, and 45.6 degrees west longitude. In Ontario, you don't necessarily need to add the north and west because, well, that's where we are. But it is still common practice to keep them in. Let's hear a 911 call where this might get used.
Hey, it's Sam from the Angels of Fright, and we've got a medical transport plane. Their transponders showed a rapid drop in altitude. We have had no further contact since. It's a possible down scenario. So we're plotting the location 14 kilometers from the intersection of County Road 37 and the 401, roughly at a heading of 45 degrees. Lat long when you're ready with a request for readback. 44 degrees, 16 minutes, 48.6 seconds north. I long 77 degrees, 15 minutes, 35.8 seconds west, ready for readback.
So we have a way of verifying a lat and long once we plot it. That's excellent. Strive for that. Suffice it to say, we can paste it in and hit enter, and we're going to get it in Google Maps. That's not a problem. The problem is figuring out the syntax. Now, I can tell you, there's only one space. In Ontario, it's after the N. I can tell you that it goes to the 10th of a second, so you need to have one decimal place in the seconds. And then degrees, you hold down Alt, and it's 248. And the single dash and the double dash, they're on the keyboard. That's not easy. So what I recommend doing is if you need to put in a lat and long into Google Maps, just go somewhere where there isn't a road. Doesn't matter where, just so that it doesn't give you an address. Left click, it's going to give you decimal degrees. Ignore that. Just left click on it again, just like what we were saying before. Here is the right syntax. So I can copy that and paste it up here and get what I need out of it. I just happen to already have a good address where I am, so I don't have to. But you can now change these numbers to suit what's being told to you, and you know you've already got the right syntax because that's what Google gave you, right? It should also be noted that here on this one screen, we can see that the latitude is 44 degrees, whether you're using decimal degrees or you're using degrees, minutes, seconds. But that's where the similarities stop, because instead of counting in degrees, minutes, and seconds, you're counting as a percentage to the next number. So it doesn't equate. Don't just think you can move a decimal place and the numbers are going to stack. It'll be within the same degree, but that's it. Anyway, to verify, because we had that as well, we need to find the 401. So I'm going to keep scrolling out. Okay, I got the 401 and I see 37. So again, we're back to intersections again. Maybe I can zoom in to that. That's about as best as I can do. Now, as we talked about in class, right click, measure distance, and I only need to do one leg right to here, and I can zoom in and see that it is just over 14 kilometers, but I'm also just past my pin drop. So location verified. There you go. Lat and long in degrees, minutes, and seconds. Handled. So first we're going to clear our measurement by right-clicking and going clear measurement from the last sim, just so that we've got that refreshed and we don't get struggling. That will happen. If I'm measuring distance, right click, measure distance, and I go here and I count up and I get what I need. Because remember, we can keep going. They might go into a field from here and I could do this whole route and it's continuing to calculate. And every time I turn, right? The problem is that now I can't really get that to go away because when I click on something, I'm just measuring. So by going right click in my Google Maps, I can clear distance, clear measurement, and get back to a clean screen. So that was degrees, minutes, seconds. What about if somebody gives you a call like this? Obviously, it's not going to be that much harder, but let's do an example.
Hey, yeah, I'm out on Amherst Island with some friends, and we were like wading up this river from a conservation area, but like we're way past where the trail ends. We went through farm fields and all that. Anyway, my best friend slipped when where the river split, like right at the fork, and she's hurt real bad. It's sick. She can't move and she needs help fast. to get to help, I took the left fork in the river and I kept going because it had more flow to the left and I figured it would lead me out quicker. And I'm at a road now, the first road I found. I'm waiting for you guys. So before I left her, I screenshotted the coordinates off my phone so that you guys can find out exactly where she is. It said it was at 44.130305 and then negative 76.708707. Please get someone out there soon. It's quiet out here, like too quiet. And she's all alone by the water.
So not really that much different from the last one. Google Maps, paste in what they tell us, hit enter. The syntax is much easier usually for decimal degrees because there's only really a comma and a space in between. But I didn't even add the comma, and look what it did. It changed my address to decimal degrees because it wanted to. Anyway, it took us to a fork in a river, and the left fork looks wider, certainly, and it takes us to a road. So we could assume that our patient is here, and our ambulance crew should be directed in from here. Let's zoom out a little further, see what more. Okay, there's a conservation area, yeah. And yeah, you're outside of the conservation area. You've probably walked for a while. There's your decimal degrees. There's your patient. Well, there you have it, my top 10 geovalidation methods that you're going to come across in PSAP life, and also in my courses that have GIS questions baked into our assessments. Practice does make perfect here. Practicing is also quite easy to do with your fellow students or even with a friend or family member. Just have somebody randomly pick challenging addresses on their devices of choice, their mapping software of choice. It doesn't have to be what we've talked about here, because not everybody out in the public is going to use it the exact same way, and have them pick one of those 10 methods that we just discussed as a way of prompting you with an address. Yeah, if it's a friend or family member, you might have to teach them how to find a Latin long, or you might have to teach them what three words are. These are skills that may help save somebody's life down the road, so teaching it to your friends and family isn't what I would call a loss of time, right? If you need even more fun and engagement doing puzzles like this, a lot of dispatchers love the game GeoGuessr. It used to be totally free. Now a lot of the very fun modes are behind a paywall, but lots of dispatchers go together with their platoons, challenge other platoons to games of this. It's basically the problems that we have talked about in a much more fun and engaging way. It can be also a fantastic social night with your fellow 911 students. Maybe you can see who's really mastered their GIS skills with it. All you need is preferably computers, but you can even do it from your cell phones if you really want to scroll a lot. If you want to dig deeper, I would say that the next two places would be learning about topographical maps. There's plenty of YouTube videos about those. I would suggest starting with this one on the screen because essentially it picks up where the knowledge curve ends for my classes on the subject. So this should be a good transition, and then from there continue searching. And if you're finding yourself to be quite a map geek and getting a new passion for it, one tool that every PSAP that I know uses is ArcGIS. This is the industry standard, and it's used behind the scenes to make maps functional and more efficient for those of us on the front lines. This is full geek mode maps, but if this is something you're being drawn to, many courses exist, including courses in colleges that I teach at, and it might be something new to pick up. It is certainly a well sought after skill in the field of both 911 and geomatics as a whole. Hopefully you found the supplemental video both educational and engaging, and if there's any other common addressing problems you'd like me to address, feel free to let me know. I'll either do a walkthrough here or we'll go in class. If you're watching this video for an upcoming GIS test in one of my courses, well, happy practicing and best of luck to you.